Welcome back to the Caribbean American Forum. I'm your host, Rickford Burke. I'm talking with Congresswoman Yvette Clarke of Brooklyn. Congresswoman Clarke, one of the criticisms that members of the community in Brooklyn have leveled against elected officials generally is that we have a state of serious unemployment among our young people, lack of opportunities, but they feel that the community's leadership should try to pull companies in Brooklyn together. I was at a conference recently, and I heard this criticism over and over again. Target, Macy's, whatever, pull them together and let them tell the community, okay, we have 1,000 jobs, we have 5,000 jobs. Put that in a database and try to match young people to these jobs. Do you think that's a good idea? And how else could we create opportunity for young people so that we could take them off the streets, help with crime, etc.?
I think that that's one method that we should certainly pursue. Young people are unfortunately in a bind in this economy, in that so many adults have been laid off, that they're really in competition with principal breadwinners for these jobs. People we know are overqualified for these same positions, but find themselves back in the employment hunt, just as these young people are either coming out of college or finishing up in high school for the summer. So we're indeed in need of some innovative and creative ways of engaging our young people in activities that line them up, if not put them into the employment stream. One of the unintended consequences of having such a retrenchment of government is that those were the opportunities that gave young people a place to really wet their feet in the employment stream, oftentimes in the summer youth employment program. Well, as you know, unfortunately, under the Republican leadership of the House of Representatives, all of those fundings that the cities have relied on to provide those summer youth employment opportunities have been cut drastically. And what we're seeing, particularly in the city of New York, is really just a nominal effort to employ tens of thousands of young people. So you're absolutely correct, and that criticism is well warranted. That we have to come together and begin thinking outside the box, whether it's for paid internships opportunities or it's for actual employment opportunities. We need to do everything we can to bring employers to the table.
Police, a topic that you've been talking about since you were in the city council. 2 weeks ago, the ACLU presented a report after they sued the NYPD to get statistics again on stop and frisk, and we know that they stopped 600,000 people. NYPD 600,000 persons in 2011. Of that, 80% were minorities, either African American or Latino. And of that 80%, only 3% resulted in arrests. We've heard elected officials talking about this for decades, but nothing has ever happened. This policy continues. Do you think we've reached a stage where we need legislation banning the NYPD from this practice?
Well, this is a very intricate issue. Stop and frisk is a legitimate tool when you're doing crime fighting. It's not a legitimate tool when you're doing crime prevention. And I think that that's the distinction that we need to make. You see someone make a report to the police that they've been robbed. They give you a description of who that individual looked like. You then go out into the community, into a certain parameter in search of that individual. You may see 2 or 3 people that meet that particular description. Any one of us would want that individual to be stopped, questioned, and perhaps frisked to find out whether they have your belongings, my belongings on them, particularly in the light of the rash of iPod thefts, iPad thefts, and iPhone thefts that are taking place in the community. On the other hand, if you're going to stop every young black male, every every Latino male, because you're profiling, that is where you've crossed the line. You've essentially suspended their civil rights and their civil liberties, and we're at a point where that is the practice that we're seeing in the city of New York. So I want to applaud the ACLU and the Center for Constitutional Rights for all the work that they have done. This particular activity, quite frankly, has only been exacerbated over the past 10 years since the Bloomberg administration. And in inquiring about this, their response was, well, it's a response to black on black crime, black on Latino crime, Latino on Latino crime. And yeah, we have a violence issue in many parts of the city and in many communities. However, you don't give up your civil rights and your civil liberties because there are violent occurrences. Clearly, under the statistics that you just stated, if only 3% of the individuals who are getting stopped are end up in arrest, then the 97% are law-abiding citizens who have had their integrity questioned, have had their humanity dealt with inappropriately, and this is a practice that has got to stop. And I want to congratulate the Center for Constitutional Rights on the federal decision that they can go ahead with the class action suit, because if that's what it takes for the city of New York, for the leadership in the NYPD to change this practice, to deal with the issue of youth violence in a much more enlightened way, then so be it. Then so be it. I don't think that the time that is lost from homes and families where people are having to go to court to answer to bogus charges that are part and parcel of just being stopped and frisked, or for those whose rights are just being violated. They're being stopped, they're being questioned, they may be in a hurry to attend to their affairs, and now they've been detained. This is not South Africa. We don't need passbooks in order to travel about in the city of New York, and so this practice must end.
I want to follow up on the issue you just mentioned about continuing on the same line of stop and frisk. You drew a distinction between this tactic being used maybe successfully as a crime fighting tool rather than a crime prevention tool. But with this kind of statistics year after year, don't you think that at some point in time we may need legislation to strictly advise the police when they can do this? Maybe tighten the probable cause description, maybe to say, okay, if you suspect that this person definitely committed a crime or is about to commit a crime, then you may stop and question and frisk. Do you think we need something like that so as to make sure that the police department is compliant? Because maybe a decade ago, 3 years, 4 years ago, when you were in the city council, you were talking about the same thing and nothing has really happened. As a matter of fact, it's intensified. So I was wondering if at some point in time the state legislature should have looked at this issue and defined the conditions on which they may do it.
Well, it's going to be challenging. Again, you stated in your questioning of me, someone who may be about to commit a crime. Who determines that? That becomes very subjective. Mm-hmm. Someone may look suspicious, and maybe in their own mind they're about to commit a crime, and for whatever reason, you know, someone speaks to them and they decide right then and there that's not the life for them? Is it the right of the police to stigmatize them as a criminal, though they have not committed a criminal act? These are the types of questions that we're dealing with here. But even more importantly, it's the profiling that's involved. It's the racial profiling that's involved that becomes an issue. Now, we have a racial profiling law in the books. You know, there is a prescription about reasonable suspicion and reasonable doubt when it comes to those who may be out in the community, or what it takes to actually stop someone. It's an adherence to that becomes the issue. It's the real problem is, you know, for your rank and file officer, how do you make those distinctions if at the top those distinctions aren't being made and there's no follow through in terms of supervision to make sure that that is what is happening? We're not the only ones who know these statistics. The police department also knows these statistics. And so when you see that more stops have been made in the category of Black and Latino men, more stops than there are actually men in the population, you have to say your policy has gone awry. And I think that we're seeing that with Commissioner Kelly now. He's apparently written a letter to Speaker Quinn of the New York City Council indicating as much. What comes next now is, what will that response mean tangibly in terms of a reduction in the types of behavior that is taking place in our communities? How do we make these young men whole again after having these types of negative interactions with the police department? There's a lot of mending that needs to take place, a lot of healing from what has become a flashpoint in our town that has not been given the appropriate recognition from either the mayor or the commissioner, as far as I'm concerned.